Today we're going to talk about Babel. And I heard that one Afrikaans oomie say, yes, we preach every Sondag out the Bible in the church. So Babel is in the Bible, but we're going to talk a little bit about, sorry guys, it took me a whole week to write that joke, but anyway, okay. We're going to speak from Genesis chapter 11 from verse 3, and there's a couple of verses that I want to read. It's a very well-known story. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and some of other stuff that they used to build places. Okay. Verse 4, then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Verse 5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower. Verse 6, and the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Verse 7, come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. Sounds like some of our marriages, doesn't it? It's very unprofessional to laugh at your own jokes. I'm sorry. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. And next verse, verse 9, therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the languages of all the earth. And from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of the earth. Very well-known story, very interesting story, actually a very deep story. If you've been in our church for a long while, you'll know the trend that we're going to go to when it comes to the Tower of Babel. I've got something a little bit different that I want to share with you today, but I just want to give you a little bit of a recap. If you're here for the first time this morning, we're basically running through important stories in the Bible. So the theme for the year is Bible stories, but for grown-ups, because, many of us, we have a children Bible's view of God. And so we grow up as adults and we struggle to reconcile our adult life with the stories that we read as children in the Bible. But there's a solution to that. You just read the adult Bible now. Okay, so it's actually quite simple. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this idea. Sorry Victor, jy kan vir my aangaan na daai Genesis deel toe asseblief. Perfect. Just to catch you up to date with where we are at this stage. So we spoke about creation a couple of weeks ago, and it is important to take note that is where trust was established between God and man. And then Eden came to, you can go to the next one for me. Eden came on the scene, and trust was fractured because of the humans. I almost said woman, but humans, because of the word. You know what? No, but no. It's just, I know we always tease about this, but I think I shared this with you before. Doc Kobus shared this with me. I think it was Doc who said this to me once. He said that, Eve had an excuse because she was deceived by the enemy, but Adam had no excuse because he knew the lie and he continued in it in any case, without any deception. Some say it was his wife, but I won't comment on that statement. Then we've got the story of Cain and Abel. You guys know what happened there, and Cain basically killed his brother, and what happened is trust was completely destroyed. And then after this whole trust that deteriorates, we find ourselves in the place where the flood pops up. And humanity we spoke about this 2 weeks ago. Humanity seems to remember the water, but Genesis tells us why the waters mattered. And there's this whole story of a slow deterioration of man. And many times we are tempted to align the rebellion of the world to something that happened by a tree with Adam and Eve. But in reality, mankind has been confronted with rebellion up until this day. And so it's not just Genesis, We've got Cain and Abel at the flood, and we even have the story of the Tower of Babel. And if you've a little bit, I just want you to bear with me for a second, because I need to build this context to where we're going to go to today. And then quickly the next one. I just want to go through this very quickly. So basically what happened is creation was created good. The next one. Eden asked us this question: can I really trust God, with Adam and Eve and the Nachash, as we spoke about that? When it came to Cain, it was the next question: can I trust my brother? Because there was tension between them and he murdered his brother. And then comes the flood, and that is a total collapse everywhere of society. And the conclusion of our conversation is always this foundation, that creation flourishes where trust is intact. Creation flourishes where trust is intact. So what has got this story to do with Babel? Now, I'm going to take you to a strange place. I'm going to take you outside the Bible to a strange book with this wonderful theme: the world without us. Okay? If you've been in the church for a long time, you would know this. I've shared I shared this with you before. And this journalistic journey to imagine what the world would look like if we disappeared immediately. I strongly want to encourage you to read this book. This is not a Christian book. It's not even a theological context. It's just plain journalism and thinking about what happens if mankind would disappear. And let me just explain it to you. You can go to the next one for me, please. So, Ekskuus tog, jy kan maar aangaan vir my. What would happen if the planet, if humans suddenly disappeared? And here's the summary. Okay, you guys can take up another offering because I just read the book for you. Okay, it saves you so much time. Cities would decay quickly. I want you just to absorb this for a second, what I'm sharing with you. Cities, what we are so used to, these buildings and these structures, if we had to disappear, it will decay much quicker than you think. Buildings do not last forever. If you stay in a home and it rains, you know exactly what I'm talking to you about. The wall looks solid until it rains very hard. Then you've got these nice bubble waffle textures that pops up in the inside of your living room. I'm not sure if you guys have that problem. But nature is consistently fighting back against everything man creates. I want you to, that's why we have to waterproof every winter. Because nature is fighting back. That's why you need to plaster every now and then. That's why you get cracks. That's why you have to replace a roof after hopefully a couple of tens of hundreds of thousands of years, and not every four months. But the challenge that you are faced with is that nature consistently fights back. So the book talks about this. You can go to the next one for me. Within days, subway tunnels would begin flooding because pumps would stop. I wasn't aware of this, but I was informed that, especially even in the Cape Town area, there are some large buildings that have pumps running in their basements consistently because of it's a little bit below the water level. So these structures are standing because they are dependent on water being extracted from the basements. Otherwise, if that would stop, some of these buildings would flood underneath. That's a scary thought, isn't it? Okay. It's not unique to Cape Town. I think in New York, there's subway tunnels as well. They spend so much money to deliberately keep water out. They are resisting nature in those areas. Okay. Then within years, vegetation would start breaking through roads and buildings. You guys know what I'm talking about. Okay. You would sometimes have tiles and you haven't cleaned it in a while, and moss would start growing between the grout. Well, let's talk about paving, not tiles, okay? Paving outside. It's like nature keeps on fighting back. And that's why we've got, I don't want to use names, but we throw a little bit of chemicals here and there. We cut the grass, we trim the things. We make sure that we control nature. Otherwise, nature will control us. This is just normal common sense stuff, okay? So if we had to disappear immediately, the world and nature would slowly begin to recapture everything that we conquered. So much so that the book argues that the only signs that would be left in a few thousand years that man has been on the earth is the engravings we made in stone. It's the only thing that will be left. And maybe the harmful material that is due to nuclear waste with nuclear energy. Those things last a couple of thousands of years, if I'm not mistaken. So the bottom line is this, that nature, you can go to the next one, would reclaim infrastructure. It's even if you think about strong things like steel, get on to the next one for me. Steel structures would eventually corrode. And then this funny thing he speaks about is that next one for me, roots and plants would break apart pavement. Here's the interesting thing as well. Jy kan vinnig deurgaan vir my. Wildlife would return again. I need to be honest, okay? And I'm scared to say the next thing because my mom will be very angry at me, okay? Dogs would die. Sorry. Some dogs, ladies and gentlemen, can only survive because of humans trimming their hair, taking them to cut their nails, okay? Making sure that they have vitamins in the morning, making sure that their canned fruit is specifically 22.5. No, that's not my mom, that's my sister. But in any case, no, don't get me wrong. If we had to disappear, some of the things that I can't say it that way. I'm just reprimanding myself. If we had to disappear, what we call animals is not animals, okay? They won't survive. He talks about this, and some of us is not going to feel comfortable with this. The only domestic animal that might seem to survive is a cat. And that's some sad news for many of us, right? Okay, because we want the dogs to make it and not the cats to make it, okay? You see, because we like dogs for some reason we don't like, or some of us don't like cats. For whatever the case may be. If you think about something like cattle as well, that are dependent, they are herd animals, they are dependent. Many of the species of animals has been bred and specifically altered so that we can have more meat, for example, today. And if man had to disappear, nature would not look like nature. In any case, I'm going to talk to you about it in a second. So certain animals would spread into urban areas. Next one for me, please. And ecosystems would slowly rebalance without human pressure. So I'm going to sound like a very bad second-hand car salesman for a second, okay? So I wrote a book, The Biodegradable Christian. Stop cheering, calm down. If you're watching online, it's crazy in the church. So okay. I'll just give them a moment just to calm down. You can't hear because thank you so much. Thank you, appreciate it. And I speak about this in my book. It's called Unnatural Nature. I refer to nature as being unnatural because when we walk into nature, I see my paving and I see my perfect hedge around my certain plants. I see my beautifully designed chili plants, which I need to feed with specific compost, otherwise they won't make it. I even need to put umbrellas over them when the sun is too much, otherwise my chilies doesn't grow, okay? So what I'm trying to explain to you is what we so quickly go out and say is nature. I have a counter argument towards this. I don't think that's even nature at all. No, we're going to the park, our kids run on pavement and say they played outside, but there was nothing natural about that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying we have a misperception of the magnificence of the nature that God created when He created this world. It was wild, it was large, it was magnificent, it was powerful. If it wasn't for our technology, for many years, man was the subordinate under nature. And we had to be very smart to build things, listen carefully to the words, and structure things so that we can fight back against nature. And I'm not arguing because going to a dentist with no vatakis that makes it numb would be horrible, okay? Can you just imagine going to a dentist? But I want you to absorb something here, and I want you to take something in, okay? Go to the next one quickly for me. The planet would recover quickly once humans were gone. But the problem with this is that this doesn't sit well with me. The facts is pointing to this. But isn't it true that we were created for the opposite reason? I'll just ask a question. Didn't God put us in a position to add value to this world? Didn't God put us in a position where when we are supposed to engage with nature, when we are supposed to engage with Him, when we are supposed to gather as a community, that the effects of that gathering should add value? But you see, the problem is the moment trust is broken, we see a world where God has given man a responsibility, but all that man cares about is himself. We don't care about a relationship between God. We don't care about a relationship between our brother and our sister. And we don't care about a relationship between nature. And all we do is we take what we can take to benefit us as an individual. And what you see in the world is the results of a fallen world. Now you might think, but how bad can things be? Because it's fantastic out there. It is. Technology and stuff is fantastic. I'm not saying you should sell your house and go stay in a tent. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. I'm not talking about materialistic things. I'm talking about spiritual things. And I want you to open your heart and just bear with me for a second over here. Because I want us to evaluate, are we in a spiritual, healthy place with God when we look at ourselves and when we look at our communities? Are we doing that which God asked us to do? It's natural for all of us. We have this, the desire for unity. And I'm not saying this bad. This is actually fantastic. Can I share something new? This popped up 2 weeks ago. I was made aware of this 2 weeks ago. Listen to this. Okay. The startup company Reflect Orbital plans to launch low orbit satellites with giant mirrors. So you can walk outside and do your makeup while you are driving to work or walk. No, that's not the reason. Shining sunbeams down to the earth at night, which it says could power solar panels, reduce seasonal depression, and just pause about the Cape Town does not need more sunlight after this week. I need to send them a mail on this regard, okay? So we want satellites with umbrellas, okay, not with mirrors. But in any case. And illuminate city streets or rescue sites. The concept that they're trying to launch is this, is that when man gathers together, something powerful happens. We become a powerful force to be reckoned with because we can do anything that we dream of doing. We can do anything under the sun. And if you don't believe me, we just read that in the Bible about the Tower of Babel. And the whole concept was God looked down on us and said, man is gathering together, but that's not good. So here's the question. Where do we draw this line? How do we interpret this? Because there's so many beautiful things that comes from us working together. Many of us, this is going to be very rude, but it's going to be very true. Many of us, the only reason why we survive is because there's other people that does stuff and they actually know what they are doing. Let me tell you right now, I've been trying to grow carrots now for 4 months, okay? If my family was dependent on my skill to grow 7 carrots for them to survive on this world, there would be no John on this earth. I promise you now. If there was no OK and Spar and all these type of grocery stores, our family would not make it. I am dependent on the skill set of others in order to be able to survive, and so are you. I mean, I don't know how we're going to survive without Wi-Fi one day, but, and ChatGPT, because that's the only way we keep our jobs still. The challenge comes, and I want to take my last 11 minutes. I can't believe it. 11 minutes to take this a little bit deeper, but just bear with me a little bit. Can you go to the next one? You see, there was an issue when it comes to the Tower of Babel, this gathering of humanity, this togetherness of mankind, building a fantastic tower because they want to protect themselves, they want to make a name for themselves. It sounds very similar to modern society, by the way. But they were trying to structure a world without God. I want that to sink in for a second. Because many times people struggle with this Tower of Babel, this people gathering together, because we're faced with this today. Where do you draw the line with technology? It's not the challenge that we are progressing, and it's not the challenge that when we gather, we are unified and we can do amazing things. The challenge comes when we gather together with an agenda to reject God. And that becomes the most significant, dangerous thing that our world is faced with, not just in our time, but in every single generation that has lived on this earth. I want to quickly show you the next one, the pattern of rebellion. Just pick up on this. Sometimes sin is easy to spot. Murder, theft, deceit, Blue Bull supporters. You can see them, you can hear them everywhere. It's not difficult to pick them up, okay? If that's you, just put down your hand, we'll pray afterwards, okay? But here's the thing, I want you to listen carefully. Please open your heart. Please open your heart. Other times, sin can look successful. I want you to really, really, really open your heart at this moment. It's easy to spot the visible sin, which we all recognize and we all point to. But sometimes sin can look successful. Well, that's what the Tower of Babel tells us. Things were looking fantastic. Humanity was gathering together. They were achieving wonderful things in their time. They were protecting one another. They were making a name for themselves. But their agenda was slightly off because they were trying to build something independent of God, and they didn't need God in their lives anymore. And God looks down and He begins to become concerned because the sin of Babel, next one for me, was invisible because it was all in their hearts and not in their buildings. Their sin was not visible. And God comes down and He notices that His initial intention for creating man becomes dangerous. Because when they unite together because of their agenda and their selfishness and their focus, and they deliberately choose to build a world where God is not part of it, that is arrogance, ladies and gentlemen. And God looks down, and here's the best part of it all. God, according to the Bible, God changes their language to disperse them. But I want you to pick up on this. God scatters the nation because of mercy. I want you to listen carefully to this. God scatters the nations because He is merciful. This is a very strange example where God doesn't discipline directly, like, for example, when you talk about the flood or whatever the case may be. But God disciplines in a subtle way where He stops the success. You guys aren't hearing me. God comes to a place where He stops the success in your life because He's concerned that when the success is coming through, that your character is not able to match where you are going to, because quickly you will feel safe, you will feel structured, you will feel connected. But the problem is, instead of making a name for God, it becomes dangerous because now it's about making a name for yourself. Here's the bit. We are all prone to this. All of us. Any person on this earth is prone to this. And if you want to do this a little bit further, I'm just going to mention this because I've spoken about this in depth at many times. I want you to go into the New Testament, go look at Pentecost, the day of Pentecost, where the fire tongues came down and people started praying in tongues and all those wonderful stories. I want you, just for interest's sake, link up the conversation between the language that is dispersed at Babel and the language in the Spirit that's unified in Pentecost, and just evaluate those two things together. And that's just a point for going a little bit deeper if you want to do that study. You see, unity is the most powerful thing on this earth, but it becomes dangerous if God is not part of it. And this caused me to take a very hard look at us as a church together. Because we are united. Not like in Manchester, but like in together, okay? we are united. I know it was, I'm sorry, that was bad. We are united, but if God is not part of this unity, we are building something unhealthy. We are building something dangerous. We are building something that will make sense to us over here, but we will feel empty over here because God is not in the process. And without us being intentionally aware of what's happening, like Samson, we wake up and realize God is not part of us anymore. So we need to allow God in this moment to shape our name. I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm trying to tell you. We are all building something. All of us. We are all building something. But I need you to allow God to shape your name. Can I expand on what I'm trying to say? I need you to allow God to discipline you so that He can determine the outcome of your story. I need you to allow God to show you and say no at certain occasions because we want Him part of the story. I need you to allow God to take those rough edges and shape it. Otherwise, you are just building a name for yourself. And can I be bluntly honest? Our names for ourselves is not as good as we think it is. Many of us enjoy blessings today because of the discipline God has placed in our lives. And you can't see the opposite because we only see one story. And I've said this before. So many times, the day you got saved, you aren't even aware of the dangers God saved you from. For one simple reason, you just surrendered in any case. But if you did not, your story would have, I can assure you, your story would have been a different story for one simple reason. Because the moment you allowed someone greater than yourself to mold you, to shape you, you allowed them to determine your name, your future, your reputation. And that trajectory changed the destination where your story would have ended up. There was one amen, thank you. So I want to ask you something serious. What are you building in your life? And I want to ask you one more question. Where is it taking you? God is less concerned, next one for me please, about how impressive the tower is. And He's more concerned about where the tower is leading you. Last slide, and then I'm going to start preaching this morning. Okay. Direction matters more than appearance. You can sit here and be as successful as you want to be. You can have a fantastic, stable reputation, and you can tell us all the wonderful things in your life on the outside. But I want you to ask yourself this question. Where is your current lifestyle leading you towards? I'm going to give this practical example. Pastor Nigel Brown, we spent some time with him last week. Fantastic guy. Fantastic. I've known him since, probably when I was a young teenager for a long time. And he explained it this way. He says, imagine you love, what's a nice and fancy car? A Toyota. Okay. You love a Toyota. Okay. You love a Toyota. And you are passionate about Toyota. There's nothing that makes you more happy than being able to drive in a Toyota. Fantastic. And you get this most pristine, beautiful Toyota Tazz 1.3. It's light on petrol, it's easy to maintain, and it just makes your world. I mean, if you can just sit in that car, life will be different for you. But there's one catch in the story. It's your favorite car, but it's not leaving towards the destination where you want to go to. And then on the other hand, you've got this fraught rust bucket Beetle. Okay, it's always yellow. The fraught ones are always yellow, and I speak from experience. My dad had one. Okay, a fraught yellow one. But I want you to listen to this. But where it's leading you to is exactly where you want to be. And now we are faced with this challenge in our lives. Do I want to climb into this amazing Toyota that I always wanted to drive in? I always wanted to journey in this. And I just want to have that experience. But it's not moving you to where you want to be. Or do we choose, and by the way, it's not always that you have to choose a rust bucket that it takes you to a place. I'm not saying your destination, you travel in a rust bucket towards your destination. I'm talking about your priorities. You see, for many of us, we would rather climb in that rust bucket if it takes it to our families to make sure that we can be at home by the people that we love, instead of driving in the fancy Toyota and going to a place where we don't want to be at. Why? Because we have a specific end goal in our life. But why, when it comes to our lives, we understand this concept, but when it comes to our lives, every day we choose the Toyota. Every day we choose experiences, we choose and make decisions for something that moves us in a direction where we don't want to end up in. Here's the worst part of it all. The journey is fantastic. You are happy because you are in a vehicle which you enjoy. But what if, like the Tower of Babel, it's leading you away from God? What if it's leading you away from your family? What if it's leading away from your loved one? What is the point? And so we are faced with a very serious, difficult question. And at this moment, I do want to ask, and just politely ask, if you would just give me a moment where I know I'm not usually someone that does these type of things, but I want to get a little bit deeply spiritual for one single moment. Rosanne is welkom om my to come join. See, because I was challenged with this, not only this week, for a couple of times. I've got a wonderful team around me. They pray for me, they speak to me, and I've noticed everyone's been saying the same thing over and over and over again to me. And I've been listening, but I've been careful. And it was literally over this weekend where I had to ask myself a question. And I'm going to ask you the same question this morning. You see, I'm concerned, and I want to ask you, Baruch Church, us as a community, do we serve God? Let me rephrase it. We understand God to a certain degree in our heads. We understand the significance of church attendance. When we launched our new Bible study course, the amount of feedback that we're getting is overwhelming. Wherever I walk, I hear people speaking about God's word, and they're trying to interpret things, and I love what I'm hearing. But you see, it's one thing to follow God with the understanding in your head. It's another thing to submit unto Him in your heart. And I want to ask a sincere question to each one of us this morning. As a church, Baruch Church, do we only serve God in our heads? Or do we really submit to Him with our hearts? I want you to think about this very quickly. Because many times when we submit our hearts to God, we are confronted with decisions. When we submit our hearts to God, we are confronted with change. And for all of us, we don't want that. I don't want that, and you don't want that. But then we sit with a challenge. That means we are serving God up here, but we're not committing down here. You see, that's why we can come to church, pray over here, and walk out the front doors and live a different lifestyle from Monday to Friday. Because on a Sunday, I serve God up here. But when you submit to God over here, your Friday night matters. When I submit under God here, my Saturday night matters. You see, you cannot draw a place in a line where you separate. Let me rephrase. You cannot just choose to serve God in your head when it's convenient, because then you're not serving God. And you can look successful. Like the Tower of Babel, it can look fine on the outside, but all we are doing is building a name for ourselves, and we're not staying obedient to where God is calling us to. And the people inside the church, you and I, we are the most prone to this. Because we call salvation serving God with our heads. But when you serve God with your heart, sometimes He's going to ask you to forgive. Sometimes He's going to ask you to be merciful. Sometimes He's going to ask you to submit. And here's the worst part of it all. Sometimes He's going to ask you to put a guard in front of your mouth. Then you can't say what you want to say anymore. Why? Because you're not serving God over here. You are submitting to God over here. And this becomes personal. It becomes sensitive. And then there's a Bible verse that says that's where you pick up your cross and you follow Jesus. And for too long, we run on the success of our outside lives. We run on the success of my finances are stable. We run on the success of my family is stable. My work is stable. My home is stable. That is not the same as submitting to God. And I can say this on the contrary. Maybe things are falling apart in your life, but you know the source. You know where to kneel down. There's nothing wrong ever with submitting your heart. And so we measure our spiritual success based on material measurements. And maybe for a long time, maybe I'm speaking to someone that feels that you just never felt good enough. I'm telling you now, because your heart is surrendered to God, the bank account doesn't matter. There's pressure financially, but we are not talking about your spiritual condition before God. And stop evaluating your success based on worldly people who generates wealth in wrong manners, and then you feel unsuccessful because you humble yourself before God. No. See, we're going to be challenged with this when it comes to Babel in our lives. We're going to be challenged with this. Have you been serving God in your head the whole time? Or have you been surrendering your heart